Okay, I'd like to spend some time talking about technical writing and presentations. As an analyst, you will likely be tasked with small projects such as what we will talk about today. You will likely have to write a concise report and present your findings and recommendations to executive leadership. The executive summary is probably the most important part of your analysis because it is likely all that will actually be read. Executives are very busy and oversee many projects, so it is important to develop a small summary at the beginning of your report that concisely explains what the problem is, what you did to analyze the problem, and your recommendation for the suggested course of action. Let's start with an example. Pat is a business analyst asked to analyze the PCs currently used at her company and to develop a replacement program. The key word is researched. Understand the problem domain and solutions other people have tried. So Pat researched the topic thoroughly, wrote and rewrote her report until she was happy with it, and then presented it to management. And then, well, nothing. Even though she had pointed out there was only a small window of opportunity to take advantage of this initiative. What happened? Well, Pat sought feedback. The comments she heard suggested that none of the managers who had received the report had actually read much of it. Furthermore, even those who seemed to have some idea of what the report was trying to convey didn't have a complete understanding of the actions required or the benefits. That's because Pat had gotten the most critical part of her report wrong, the executive summary. Of course, because that is what we were talking about today. So, what exactly is an executive summary? Who knows? Obviously, Pat didn't know. She thought it was just an overview, but she thought wrong, which is a common error. Think of the executive summary as a one-page proposal to the rest of the document that gives the decision maker the problem and your recommended solution. Most importantly, though, write it as a persuasive document. Imagine you are an executive and some analyst is asking you to spend money on new computers. As a good business person, your initial thought would be, no, why would I want to spend money on that? Just use the same crappy computers you used to generate this boring report. That is why you have to persuade them to see why the change that needs to be made should be made. So we're going to work through the 7-step approach to better executive summary writing. It is really similar to the 12-step program for alcoholics, but it is only 7 steps and you do not have to quit drinking. Step 1. Your title sucks. No one wants to read something that starts out as executive summary. Give me a break. Your title needs to be meaningful. Capture your audience with the first words on the page. In Pat's case, let's go with 2-year computer replacement program. Pat obviously is British because she spells program with an A with M-E at the end. Step 2. Give your executive summary a benefits-oriented subtitle because they are more likely to read the summary if they see there will be some value for someone and they're reading it. Alternatively, if the report has nothing to do with them, they can recognize quickly and stop reading it. So Pat used the subtitle, Saving Money and Increasing Workplace Morale, which is perfect. Executives love to save money, and they prefer for their employee engagement surveys to be positive, indicating happy employees. So you have now saved them time and money because they do not have to think about how to improve employee morale. Step 3. Identify your objective. Identify the key pain points or opportunities that your document addresses. In Pat's case, she suggests that they buy last year's model to save money and only give 90% of the employees new PCs every other year, and only buy computers that have the functionality necessary. So we don't need to give a super gaming computer for people that just need Microsoft Word functionality. Step 4. Give recommendations. This is super important because this is the whole point of your analyses and the reason you wrote your report. Now it's time to provide the casual reader with enough information to understand what you're recommending or documenting. Pat also brings up a tax deduction for donating the used computers. Genius, right? Spend money now and get a tax break later. Step 5. Show me the money. No. Let's talk about the financials and possible downsides. Every good persuasive essay needs to show a fair argument. The executive will want to know how much money are we actually talking about, and that you did your analysis from a fair standpoint. Not only are you showing the positives, but also the negatives of doing whatever it is you're recommending. So step 6 is the state of the urgency of the how urgent is this request? Now in Pat's case, they have to time the purchase with the end of the fiscal year. Kind of like how at the end of the year all the car dealers want to offload cars so they don't have to pay taxes. Here she wants to hit the end of cycle surplus so she gets discounted computers, saving the company more money. Step 7, the last step, is to tell the executive what they must do. Otherwise, they may do nothing. The executive needs to make a budget so that we can maximize our value. So finally, after reading the executive summary, the executive will now know or now knew what was being proposed, what were the benefits, what was the cost and or savings, what was the urgency, so how quickly do they need to act on this report, and what do they actually need to do. And thus, this time, Pat's report was actually acted upon. Okay, so the next step is how to present. So you've written this report, and you have this executive summary, you've sent it out. Now you have a weekly meeting where you have to present what you said in your report. And you will also have to have a presentation later in the semester, so that's why this is important. So what's it like being an analyst? Business analysts and project managers need to be able to present their work, such as findings of completed analysis, proposed changes to business processes, and or underlying systems or project status. So presenting, assuming you're on business analytics side, is something you're going to have to do pretty frequently. When building a presentation, try to keep the summary limited to one slide. Executives are tight on time, going from meeting to meeting, and seeing several presentations per meeting. Sometimes, this is the only slide you get to present, as you may have only 2 or 3 minutes of a 1-hour meeting to speak. So it comes back to being concise, but also able to elaborate if asked questions. The next point is to use good transitions as you move from one point to the next. Also, try to align what you are saying to business objectives. This comes back to that persuasiveness in your executive summary. This is also good when you're interviewing for a new job. If you can align your answers to the interview questions fit with the business objective, you will increase the likelihood of getting that job. Similarly, when you're presenting your findings and you're making recommendations, if you can align the recommendation and explain to the executives how this fits our business objectives, you're more likely to get what you want from the executives. Next, announce stop points. This is basically telling you to let the people you are presenting to let you know if you can proceed, and that they understand everything up to this point before you start building on it and moving forward. It's also called go, no-go decision points. So you've started your presentation, you've introduced the problem, you're explaining your recommendations. You basically just want to verify that everybody understands up to this point before you continue on. So just like in the executive summary, everything is not perfect, and pointing out the risks or weaknesses will also make your presentation more persuasive. Let them know that the identification and mitigation of risk is a major process and will continue throughout the project. Now, show the costs of the project and the savings based on your analysis. This is assuming you have enough time to do a full presentation, or it may just be a quick bullet point on your initial slide. Finally, close with a quick summary, or just a recap of what you talked about, and any suggestions that the executives or other management might have brought up. So if they've made suggestions, you might want to write it down so that when you have to present on the progress of this analysis in the next meeting, you're prepared. In future meetings, you will have to do project updates. And the updates focus on the business side of your analysis and not the technical side of how the analysis was performed, but be prepared to defend your analysis if you uncover something that executives were not expecting or did not want to hear. One example is, let's say you are a database analyst at a hospital and you find that the new program that they developed that was supposed to make money for the hospital is actually losing the hospital $2 million a year. This kind of statement will likely make them believe your analysis is wrong or question your analysis. And you have to be able to explain to them what you did and that you are right. So the key to executive presentations is to include only the information and in the most appropriate method, which is crucial for executive decision making, while avoiding diving into details unless specifically requested. Best of luck on creating your future presentations.